starting in 1865. We know we've changed, we know we need to grow, we gotta settle the West, we gotta rebuild the South, we gotta put this country back together, our industry's gotta get bigger, we have to grow. And we're starting little by little, okay? So one of the first things is, give me 2 inventions in industry. 2 inventions in industry. That's gonna help our industry to start to grow.
Yeah.
Sewing machine and pure steel. Now give me 2 inventions in agriculture.
The reaper and the
Steel plow. The steel plow, okay? So as we grow, we begin to what we call mass produce. That means we're now beginning to build enough goods trying to build enough goods for everybody in the United States. And as we mass produce, we begin to start learning how to trade, which is called commerce. And I introduced you to 2 terms, exports and imports. Somebody tell me, what are exports? Goods made in the U.S. and going to other countries. Imports?
Goods made in other countries.
Okay, these are goods made in other countries coming to the U.S. But I don't care what country you're in. I don't care what country you're in. If you send goods to another country, you have to pay them a tariff, a tax. Now, you as a country can choose to be a high tariff, or you can choose to be a low tariff, okay? But tell me the 4 things that are going to happen if you choose to be a high tariff.
Less.
The what? Okay, that's 1. Countries aren't going to send their goods.
No
tariff's too high.
competition.
2?
No competition.
There's not going to be any competition. 3?
Goods only made on.
You can only buy goods made
On U.S.
in the United States. And 4? You're going to pay high prices. There's no competition. So the U.S. business, big business, is happy because they don't have any competition, and they're going to charge you high prices. All right. So flip-flop it again. What's going to happen if you're a low tariff nation?
Competition.
Competition.
Why?
Because then you have other countries sending their goods in.
Now countries will begin to send their goods. You're going to have competition, and as a result, what are you going to have? Lower prices. But in 1861, the United States government passed a law. Congress passed a law called the Moral Tariff Law. And in that law, we chose to be a high tariff nation. Give me the 3 reasons why we chose to be a high tariff nation.
Because our industry needed to grow.
Okay, 1 is to protect our young industry, they're freshmen. 2, to give our industry a chance to grow. And 3, allow them the chance to make their own goods. The walls are up, nobody's sending goods in. Now industry, you have time to grow and do your own thing. So now industry begins to grow. Then we went into banking. What is a bank?
Business.
It's a business set up to make
Money.
money. Do they loan you money?
Yes.
Does a bank loan you money?
Yes.
Free?
No.
They charge you.
Yes.
Do they hold your money for you?
Yeah. No.
What do they do with your money?
Invested
They reinvest it and make more
money
money, and then they'll give you interest. They'll give you a little bit
of it.
of it back. Okay, so a bank is in the business of making money. Now up here, we talked about money last week, and money goes by 2 names. They also call it what?
Greenback.
Greenbacks. Because what color is it?
Green.
Green. We also call it certificates of
Gold.
that. This really is nothing but
Gold.
paper. What backs it up? Gold. Now, in the days that we're studying, I want you to understand this. Your money wasn't just backed by gold. It was also backed by gold and silver. So you could go to the bank, give me $5 worth of gold, they'd give it to you. You could go to the bank and say, give me $5 worth of silver, and they'd give it to you. But we are going to have a war in this country, not a physical war. There's going to be a war in this country to see who's going to win, gold or silver. There's going to be a battle. It's not fighting. and gold will win. And today, gold will back up your money. So what happens, where's all our gold? Fort Knox, Kentucky. If that gold disappeared,
The money would mean nothing.
then this would be
Paper.
worthless. There's nothing backing it up, right? Okay. If the gold in Fort Knox, Kentucky, we have plenty of gold, the value of the gold is good, then $1 will equal $1. That means strong money. That's that saying, good as gold. That means when you get your dollar and you go out, you say, man, I can buy a lot with this dollar. But if the value of the gold goes down, or the amount of gold goes down, then $1 might equal 75 cents. What does that mean? That means you're going to get your dollar, you're going to go in the store, and you're going to say, hey, I can't buy as much as I used to. That means your value of your dollar has gone down. That's called weak or cheap money. All right, everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to jump into something else. Do we need to settle the West?
Yes.
Yes, all right. We call that
Manifest destiny.
manifest destiny, settling the West. What do we want out there?
People.
People. And start creating
New towns.
towns, and eventually
Cities.
and eventually
States.
Problem is, nobody wants to.
Go.
Why?
Because they don't know what's
Yeah, they don't know what's out there. I'm not going to sell everything that I own and then go across the country to an area. I don't even know what's out there. So the government's got problems. Now, before we continue, I'm going to pass these around. All through the year, I will pass things around so you can get a visual of what we're studying. These books are my books. They are personal gifts from people, students, family, and I've had them for many, many years, so treat them with care, okay? Now, only look at the pictures where there is a yellow paper. Don't sit there for a half an hour looking at all the other pictures. You don't look at anything except that's marked. So in here, since today we're going to build a railroad, here are some pictures of workers that build railroads. This is probably the hardest, most toughest job that anybody could do. My grandfather came from Mexico, and he built one of the transcontinental railroads, and he said he would never, ever do it again. It's back-breaking work. And you'll see pictures there. Here you'll see a man plowing his field. But if you look at the plow, it shines, so it must be a what? A steel plow, right? So you're going to look at that. Then over here on the next page, you're going to see reapers. These are the inventions we were talking about. They cut big grain and they're pulled by horses. It's kind of like a huge lawnmower. So you're going to look at that, okay? Then in this book, I'm going to show you a picture. Since we're going to be talking about railroads today, what powers the railroad?
Steam.
What powers the train?
Steam.
Steam. So what do you need?
Water.
Coal.
Water.
Coal and water, that's it?
And fire.
So if you get coal and you pour water on it, that's it?
Fire.
Coal and fire mixed with
Water.
water makes steam. Here you'll see a steam engine. And when they start moving and they're shoveling coal into the fire and it's hot, it has to stop to get what? And you'll see a water tank, and you'll see it right here. And the arm will go down and water will flood into the steam engine, creating, and then it'll take off. But then it's going to have to stop again to get more water. Okay, so you'll see that picture. Also, you'll see another picture here on the bottom, another farmer plowing his land. This plow is made out of wood, not steel. Okay, and we've had plows for thousands of years. It's the steel plow that's new. Then on the bottom here, you'll see a reaper. And you'll see it going up the hill, cutting the wheat, the grains, and so forth, okay? So look at those. Don't lose those yellow pages. And look at them and pass them on. All right. Here we are with the United States. This is the U.S. right here. We want people to move out here and settle the West, but nobody wants to go. And then the government starts getting an idea. And the United States government begins to have an idea, and they said, you know what? Maybe it'll help people to move out there if we build a transcontinental railroad. A transcontinental railroad. What's that?
A railroad that goes.
Give me a definition which you think a transcontinental railroad is.
Travels through continents,
Say it again.
or travels throughout a continent.
Okay, in other words, transcontinental railroad is any railroad that crosses an entire country. Now, do we already have railroads here? Do we have railroads here in the South? So what we need to do is just hook up with one of these railroads and continue building a railroad that goes all the way across the United States. If we get that, it'll be called a transcontinental railroad, and we don't have one. So a transcontinental railroad is any railroad that is built that crosses an entire country or continent. We're going to use country. So the U.S. government now wants to build a transcontinental railroad, but I will tell you this. The United States government has three major problems. They cannot build a transcontinental railroad because of these three problems. Now, you're going to tell me all three problems, or we're going to sit here and stare at each other the entire period. Tell me what problems you see that the government's going to have building a transcontinental railroad.
Mountains.
What?
Mountains.
That's it?
Indian?
No Indians, they're not going to hurt anything. Just mountains?
What? Lakes? No?
No.
Seas?
Very good. What?
Rivers?
Like, there's.
Mountains,
Rivers?
rivers,
That's what I said.
deserts,
That's what I said.
valleys, plateaus.
I got you.
That's the first thing. So you're going to learn a new word. We're not going to be using the baby word land anymore.
Platoons.
We're going to be using a new word. One of the big problems that they're going to be facing is this. It's going to be
Platos.
topography.
Oh.
And topography is just another word, and it's one of your vocabulary words. It just means what? Land. The question is how to build a railroad across mountains, rivers, valleys, plateaus, desert, and on and etc. That's one problem. How are you going to do it, government? Give me another problem.
Animal?
Animals is a problem? What?
Too expensive?
Cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's going to pay for this? Because I'll tell you right now, the government doesn't have enough money. There's your second problem. Your second problem is going to be cost. This is going to be extremely expensive to build a railroad all the way across the United States. And the question that you have is who will pay? Who's going to pay for it? The government says, I don't have all the money. Now give me the third problem.
Workers?
What?
Workers?
Who's going to build it, right? That's the next problem. Workers. Who's going to go out there and build this railroad? In other words, who is crazy enough to build a transcontinental? Who will build the railroad? Now, the United States government cannot build a transcontinental railroad with those three problems. The topography, the cost, the workers, they can't build it. So what are they going to do? They need to solve each one of those problems. In 1862, right during the Civil War, the United States government begins to build the first transcontinental railroad. If they're starting to build the first transcontinental road, did they solve all these problems?
No. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes or no?
Some?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Common sense tells you that they can't build a railroad unless they solved all three, and they did. And in 1862, right during the Civil War, they start building the first transcontinental railroad. And the idea is this: to build from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way to Sacramento, California. That's their idea. So if we look at our map, let's take a look at where they want to build. Now, do we already have railroads here?
Yes.
So we just need to connect, right? So where my finger is, that's Omaha, Nebraska. Where my finger over here is Sacramento. We want to build a railroad all the way across to connect to Sacramento, California. If we can do that, connect with the other railroads here, we'll have a transcontinental railroad. So now the United States government is beginning to build it. But they had to solve these problems. So let's go step by step and find out what they're going to do. All right. The first thing the United States government does is they got to find somebody who will build a railroad. So the United States government goes to two railroad companies. One is called the Union Pacific Railroad. Huge, powerful railroad company. And they go to the Central Pacific Railroad, another huge, powerful railroad company. And they go up to these two railroad companies and they say, would you guys like to build the Transcontinental Railroad? And of course they said what? Yes. But what do they want? They said, how are you going to pay us? And the government says, well, I don't have all the money. The Union Pacific and Central Pacific said, well, I don't work for free. So the U.S. government's got some problems. And the United States government now begins to think. And they come up with an idea. All right, Union Pacific, Central Pacific, I'm going to pay you money. I'm going to pay you money, but I don't have all the money. And so the Union Pacific sits there and says, well, if you don't have the money, then I'm not building the railroad. And then the government told the railroad, all right, what if I pay you this way, the money, and I will give you free land. And the railroad company sits there and goes, free land? What's the next question they got? How much land are you going to give us? And where is this land? And the government says, let me explain it to you, see if you'll take this deal. The United States government will give to the two railroad companies $20 miles of land on both sides of the railroad track that you build. And the railroad company's eyes get huge. you're gonna give us 20 miles of land on